All right, so welcome into our live stream today. Today, of course, is going to be diving into the metaverse and what that means for Cardano, which is going to be an interesting topic as we break down what's happening over at ADA with Charles Hoskinson and even more. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back to TechPath. Before we get started today, I want to thank our sponsors, which is FTX.us. If you've not had a chance to get into FTX, you guys should be doing it. This is one of those trading exchanges that is, first of all, one of the best in terms of overall performance in terms of price per trade. So if you guys have not been to their website, they've got a really cool app too that has really been up in terms of design. You've got, I actually like the mobile app better than the desktop app. But anyway, built by traders, for traders, lots of access over on FTX, and of course, up to 85% lower fees compared to competitors. 1 million users, and of course 30-day volume is trading in at around 10 billion. The other thing that is kind of cool with FTX is they've got a ton of new products, which one of the things that I am really interested in is the NFT platform that they're starting to build out. And we are seeing this more and more, but I like the fact that FTX has really kind of gone the extra mile to really create a true ecosystem for NFTs. So I think this is going to be something that really plays out nicely. Of course, you can hit the link below. You'll be able to join FTX. You'll get a nice little discount. And best of all, you'll be able to help the channel out as well. Also, don't forget, FTX card is available. You need to be logged in and be able to get to it, but FTX card is coming. And you've got a great opportunity to really do some spot trading and or even some limit trades, all those kind of things right there within the app. And of course, like I said, I use the mobile version, so just the way I go. Anyway, let's get into today's topic and really dive into where Cardano is heading and what's happening around the evolution of the metaverse component of a lot of different projects. We've had Silicon here. We've talked at length about various different metaverse projects throughout the year. And Cardano has been one that has been sleeping, I feel like, kind of like a sleeping giant, just waiting for an opportunity to pounce. And of course, Cardano is now jumping on scaling plans here as they target the $2 range. Cardano ranks among the top performing crypto assets in the market today. We saw some of this moving over, but it's nearly up 50% over last week. And they've revealed their plans to optimize the network. We'll get into that a little bit further. And we're seeing some upward pressure that could send it on up to around $2. And I like this when you look at where Cardano has been trying to essentially find its way. And I think the other challenge that Cardano has is, remember, it is a completely different programming language for blockchain. And because of that, they have to essentially utilize a whole new set of developers, and developers that might be accustomed to programming in another blockchain. It's a little different in Haskell, so there are a certain amount of challenges that have to be able to jump to that. And I think that may be one of the things that's holding back their development. But if you look at what IOHK and the company developing Cardano has announced new plans outlining how it's going to scale the network in 2022, and the goal is to increase the network's capacity and throughput with different parameter adjustments, enhancement, and other innovations. This is where I got a little bit gray on this, because I always wonder what adjustments means, enhancements, and other innovations. I'd like to get into the detail of that, so I thought, well, let's just dive over to the actual blog post, what they're going to be scaling in 2022. Again, decentralization still one of, and the core element for what this platform is going after. Utilizing formal development methods on Haskell. This is the thing I was just talking about. Deep roots in peer-to-peer reviewed academic. Really kind of, they just talk a lot about where they have been, but doesn't really go into the very specifics until you get into block size increase, which is bigger blocks. They're going to be increased by 8 kilobytes to 72 kilobytes, so a 12.5% increase. Further increases will be applied over time. That could be a big factor. Pipelining improves blockchain or block propagation times. So again, this is all technical jargon that essentially is saying, hey, we think we can scale based on some of these particular elements. Input endorsers improve block propagation times again, and then CPU parameters for Plutus, which is one of the key things that they've been working on for quite some time. The Plutus script enhancement, even more effective usage of, I don't want to go there, you guys know what I'm saying. And then you can kind of see where some of the adoption and updates have been. And again, this is one of those things that tells me there's a lot of technology that's being implemented in the backside of what's happening with Cardano. The real question is, how do they convert this into utilized capacity? Utility is going to be a factor, and then also what kind of projects are coming in and trying to do something with Cardano, and that's where we get into the metaverse play, which is going to be kind of a cool little element right here. I want to jump to right here, better buy right now than Bitcoin and Ethereum. This was an article that also came out. I'm kind of curious, do you guys think Cardano is a better buy than Bitcoin and Ethereum? If you had the three and you would buy one, which one would you buy? Bitcoin? How many would buy Cardano first? How many of you would buy Ethereum first? Maybe we'll run a poll on that to take a look. But milestones in the project right now, catalyst for Cardano right now appears to be the fact that the cryptocurrency has hit several key milestones in recent weeks. These are, again, technology milestones. Now, here's something that is interesting to me. Has exceeded a 20 million transaction mark, no downtime in 15 days of 100 days of operation. If this is real, and depending on what kind of stress test that they were to put on the system during these transaction protocols to be executed, that would be interesting, because we've already seen a lot of challenges with both Polygon and also Solana. We haven't seen that so much with Avalanche yet, so I'm wondering whether or not Avalanche is going to see congestion issues. This would be the question of whether or not Cardano's congestion issues do they not exist, or have they not just been tested yet in a real world scenario where you've got a certain level of leverage against it. If you guys know of a project that has tested Cardano to that level, let me know. Let me know, because I think that would be interesting to analyze where they're going. I want to go also talk a little bit about their Hydra upgrade. This was an upcoming catalyst also for Cardano. This is expected to take place later this year. Supposedly, it's going to be dramatically improving the processing time for transactions again, which Cardano is pretty fast anyway. So for it to be able to really accelerate even more so, this thing is going to become like a McLaren with a Ferrari engine. I like it. So a lot of people, as you can see, betting on Cardano's future and really kind of picking it as one of the key projects for this year. What I think, though, that has caused a little bit of this movement is all the metaverse talk. And that is all built around their project called Pavia. This article right here, land prices surge on Cardano Metaverse project Pavia. 60% of 100,000 virtual land plots have sold on Pavia, with the remainings set to go under the hammer later this quarter. And we'll continue to see a little bit. I want to show you Pavia's ecosystem and what it looks like, so you can kind of get a quick understanding of where this and what it looks like. Now, this is Pavia. And if you zoom in on any one of these, I'll zoom in a little bit right here. We'll go in a little tighter. And you can kind of see what's happening. So there is some space that's coming in right now, I mean, in terms of land sales. But again, the graphics on this one, and I'll show you some graphics from their Twitter feed of just their trailer video. I'm not absolutely sold on this one, but listen, it's early, and that alone is understanding and understandable, is that anytime you have these early projects like that, it definitely is always a little bit interesting to see how they come together. I wanted to show this video that they have of their metaverse play, and this is Pavia, so it shows you kind of just a conversion of the in real life to virtual and or metaverse world. And I don't know, graphics, I'd give them maybe a 6 or a 7 compared to some of the other graphics and some of the other complementary applications. There's Charles up there on a billboard doing a design on Haskell right there. And interesting. We'll see how this comes together, and whether or not this could be the leverage that Cardano needed to be able to jump. I want to see if they're actually doing e-commerce. They're trying to kind of, allude to that. I don't know. This would be interesting. Your thoughts on Metaverse? If you were to rank the Metaverses that you've seen so far, and let's take a look at, let's just say Sandbox is one. Let's look at Pavia here. If you've had a chance to maybe see some of the early signs of what's going on in Decentraland and then also Zilliqa, let's look at just those four and just kind of curious as which one you would say is your preferred metaverse or where you think it might be going. Pavia may be a little early here on just the aspect of them growing, so it's brand new to the space. We'll see how it comes together. All right, we've got a poll coming in, and let me look at that because I want to talk a little bit about Basho, which is part of the overall strategy here as well. All right, so the poll coming in: would you prefer to buy right now? 71% of you would prefer to buy Cardano right now, 16% on ETH, and only 11% on Bitcoin. It looks like the Cardano Nation has arrived. 71%. That's pretty impressive. That's pretty impressive, guys. I will have to say. ADA scaling plans to move Basho phase for 2022. This is another project. Again, the Basho phase. They talked a little bit about it in their blog. I would recommend, if you have not, if you are a Cardano holder, you probably already know this, but maybe you're looking at getting into Cardano. And this is one of those projects that I think you should take a little deeper dive into, really to understand what they're trying to do with a lot of the development of how this project is really moving forward. I think that's going to be interesting to kind of help it move to the next level. We've had SundaeSwap here on our show before. And SundaeSwap, we had one of their lead devs on, and we were asking a lot of questions around SundaeSwap, some of the challenges, some of the issues that were faced. Cardano's price is also surging on SundaeSwap's DEX catalyst. So as you can see, SundaeSwap's lows of 128 we saw there. And if you understand where SundaeSwap is going, this is just to give you an example. At the moment, we've all been waiting for has finally come. We're excited to share that SundaeSwap and ISO will be launching on the evening of Thursday the 20th. That's big. I think this will be one as it starts to roll out, as long as they don't have any challenges in terms of executing, because most of these rollouts, as you guys have known throughout the year, we have not seen the smoothest of deployments on these. Now, maybe SundaeSwap will be different with it being Cardano, a lot more, I think they take very calculated steps in terms of their development. So most likely we're probably going to see that kind of scenario. I'll be definitely curious as to whether or not this will be a factor in Cardano's performance, because if it goes back to its all-time high near $3, a lot of it I think will be because of some of the partners that are going into it. Ada Lin's CEO Kaspars Koskins also explains why Cardano is superior to Ethereum. Now we're going to do a breakdown of a portfolio that I did last year when I sold my Cardano bag. And it was when I felt like, after the Purple and Alonzo launch, and it was really kind of one of those phases in which I just wasn't seeing what I felt was a good roadmap. And it's taken some time for that roadmap to roll out. And it might be a time for me even to jump back into Cardano. But I want to show you what I did with that portfolio, and I'll show you the breakdown on this. But with Ada Lin, which I think, again, we're going to see more and more of these kinds of partnerships, additional deals that are happening within these ecosystems like this. And I think with Ada Lin, I think he again is one of those proponents of where this is all moving for Cardano. And I'm very bullish in terms of where it might be going, but in the long term, I think the big key is going to be, can they execute on this scaling comparison? And if you look back again, this was just to run down quickly what we just talked about: block size increase, pipelining. They're going to do the input endorsers, memory and CPU update, the Plutus script enhancements, node enhancements that will help on transactions, and then on disk storage. They also have this second phase on the, so to speak, which will be sidechains, Hydra, off-chain computing, and Mithril, which again, if you're not a computer science is always studying Cardano. A lot of this stuff is going to be gray area to you, but the key here is that they are trying to prep for what eventually will be a very interesting growth. And even if you look at Vitalik's poll the other day, it was one of those things where he said, hey, you wake up in 2030 and all the world's transactions and key financial systems are operating on a chain and it's not Ethereum. What would it be? ADA was selected as the number one. So we just did a poll. Is Cardano's Metaverse a little too late? A little too late. And no, looks amazing. 52% of you love it. Yeah, it looks a little rough. 47% out of 140 votes. So I think I'm kind of with the 47% on that, based on what I've seen so far in other Metaverse applications and other Metaverse graphics. But quickly, remember, these things can ramp up and get development going very quickly, because typically what you have, if they can gain the potential artists that they would need for really ramping up the graphics side of things, the key is that Cardano most likely has the bones and the infrastructure underneath this to really kind of accelerate it. So you add graphics and an infrastructure in play, that could be a big one. That could be a big one. All right, so which of these Metaverse worlds do you like best so far? This was another poll that we just did. ETH and Polygon on Sandbox, 43%, said you really like that one. Pavia, Cardano, 27%. And then Metopolis, Zilliqa, 14%. And Decentraland on ETH, 14%. Wow, Zilliqa, 14%. And it's right there with Decentraland. Whew. Okay, that's interesting. But again, Sandbox has, I think, just been one that has really held on, and they've done a good job. They've done a really good job with it. Obviously, where that's going to potentially go, I still think that's going to be one of the leaders out there that we'll continue to see. All right, you guys are wanting to look at the ADA chart, and it's one that we've charted for quite some time. I'll go back here on the chart all the way back into September of last fall. And this was really where we started to see a little bit of the downfall of Cardano's overall price. And pricing right there was right around $1.90. It had come down from the almost $3 mark and started to go a little flat. Sentiment had fallen down to 68.49 and an amp of 63. That was when we saw a lot of flatness. And that's exactly what happened. And of course, we started to see this little bit of a slow dip into where we are now. The last Cardano pull we did was on January 10th, and this big difference, what a difference a quarter has made. 73.15 now the sentiment score with an amp of 74.06, which, as you guys know, I talk about this often, when you have an amplification score that flips the sentiment, meaning it's performing higher, you're going to see fireworks, and that's exactly what we're seeing right now on our indices as it's over tracking and tracking this high point right here, right now, at about $1.60, which could happen maybe within the day, 24 hours. It does have a little bit of correction sliced into it. We'll see if that drops down, but when I look at the potential for this back to $1.92, maybe around February 1st, if we continue to see this ramp up here and enough news. My concern with these projects is when we see sentiment like that, is if we aren't seeing utility case scenarios play out, then it usually fades very quickly because the news will get consumed and we'll see a short-term run, or we could see something like what we saw with Avalanche or even with Solana last year. Now, a lot of you said, well, Paul, why did you sell off your Cardano? And one of the things I was looking at is I just felt like it was going to be too long of a run for this period of time to actually occur. And I feel like I was right, because what I did with Cardano, and I want to show you let me pull this up real quick, and I will give you guys a quick view of a portfolio that we were tracking. Back in here was the Cardano bag right here. And this essentially was what I did with my assets last year with the Cardano bag. And I had a $15,000 bag of Cardano. I basically split that into 3 different investments back in I believe it was August of last year. And Avalanche was one. It's up 443%. All these were about a $5,000 investment. Terra was the other one. My purchase price was $15.37, up 418%. And my Solana, which was at $65, and I thought I overbought at that time, up 112%. So that's the gains that I took on the Cardano bag that I bailed out of and was looking for an opportunity to kind of grow that. So great move, but also now the question is do we take that kind of investment and maybe reposition it back into Cardano as we start to see potential development? I still am a little bit hesitant, but I may end up doing something with this to kind of see if Cardano can do a doubling and go back up to its all-time high around $3. Right now, the way it's looking over here on the chart, I mean, it's got a potential because it is moving and we are seeing sentiment growing. Again, 73.15 and 74, that is a big improvement on where this is going. Now, what has woken them up? Is it just the movement here? Is it Metaverse? That'll be the interesting thing. If we start, as I said, if we start to see utility play into this, things could happen very quickly for Cardano. So I'm going to be watching very closely. I want to get to some of the questions because I know you guys have a ton, and we'll try to get as many as I can. All right. Anki Gupta is holding Cardano for, say, let's say 2026 is a definite gains, or is there a high risk of it going to zero? I don't think Cardano goes to zero. No. I feel like there's a lot of opportunity for them, much like I don't see Avalanche and I don't see Solana going to zero. Those projects like Cardano are long-term plays within an ecosystem. There are a lot of projects that may look really good, but you're talking about a 5-year run. That's hard to say in blockchain because there's so much that can happen. And just like, kind of like innovation technologies, if you're investing in stocks, those also have that kind of volatility. But this is still a volatility level market. And we do these, market movers like this, and I'll bring these data points to you like what you just saw with Cardano, 73.15 and 74.06 on the AMP. But it's not investment advice. The idea is it's giving you an understanding of a project, maybe a little deeper, and give you some direction, hopefully, to go get some research additionally done before you jump into any of these. But remember, all this is very volatile as you're going down. So Real Talk saying Cardano advancing too slow, too much competition if it doesn't speed up. That's my argument, I think, with Cardano, even though I still respect what they're trying to do and what that team is trying to do. But just like, it's like this in the days of the early internets, there were certain companies that were developing and breaking stuff a lot faster, and that was kind of where the theme came from in Silicon Valley was, move fast and break shit. Do it as much as you can, because the faster you break it, the faster you can fix it and prep for really going into the next era of development. And I think that's the thing that is happening in blockchain right now, is you've got a lot of people that are trying to break stuff, and Cardano is very methodical. They don't break stuff as much, and that's just Charles's way. It could be good, but I always look at it this way, and I think of Oracle and Salesforce, Mark Benioff and Larry Ellison, kind of the departure of those two guys who used to be on the same team. Has a lot of similarities here. Salesforce completely put the hammer down because they were breaking stuff left and right. And Benioff, of course, now, look where he is in comparison. Hey, Oracle's no slouch, don't get me wrong. But in comparison, Salesforce.com, of course, became the thing that really, and I think that's what we'll see in blockchain. I think there's going to be some out there that would be done. All right. Okay, so M and Perry, what, you sold Cardano? Yes, I sold it last summer. I took the money, I reinvested in some other projects, and we did fine with those projects, did really well. But waiting for what I felt was just a longer burn time to get to the project's level that Cardano could be. And I think Cardano could be nearing that now. So could they see a Solana-like run? Could be possible, could be possible. I would want to watch this evolve if we continue to see some sentiment movement, price action to follow, and partnerships. My position on Cardano would be much more different than what I had last fall. All right, does Cardano have a potential to break XRP's community? I'm not sure what that question is. I would say XRP's community is very strong. Maybe Cardano and XRP community is some intermingling there, but I'm not really sure about that one. Blizzard, the most successful game developer, needs 10 years to build. A blockbuster game, a top-of-the-art metaverse would need more. Yeah, I'm in agreement with you there, Younger, is that you do need time to really develop these things out. And the example of Cardano's metaverse play right now, remember, this may not be the only metaverse play coming out of the Cardano ecosystem. So there could be stuff happening right now that we don't even know about that could be developing very quickly. And remember, first movers are always the slowest movers because they have to kind of trailblaze. Once you get to a certain level and you have developers that have been coded up or brought up to that sequence level for developing, your acceleration in kind of a level 2 development is much faster. When I used to run developers, that was exactly what we did. We never wanted to make the first move because we knew we'd have to fix a whole lot of stuff that we'd end up breaking. So a lot of times we would trail other developers. I know it's kind of like cheating off the smart kid, but the point is that you would learn so much faster, and then your acceleration on your next level of code dev was so much better and faster, and you could just scale quickly. And we used to do that with Microsoft all the time. It's a common thing. All right, will Sol flip ADA? Yes, Sol's going to come back and do that. I think just the volume of Sol and what its price point will be eventually. Now, if ADA goes above $3, I would say no. But if it doesn't, then I would say no. It's more than just a metaverse for Cardano. Coming in from OJ Pritchard, there would be an explosion of dApps going live this year. I agree. If we see the ecosystem coming out of Cardano like we saw Solana last year, things could get really interesting if we see that. That'll be the key here. Cornucopias is the most promising Cardano Metaverse. I like that one in the sense that we need to check it out. So let's see. And then another one right here. Man, you guys are just piling in the questions. Cardano has been working hard under the cover while everyone has been hating and not moving. ADA will explode when it's ready. I like it. I like that one, actually, in the fact that we'll get there when we get there. Don't worry about it. Okay, and then you got Cardano is garbage. Nobody's using it. Okay, all right. We'll see how that goes. He sells on your heads. Woo, somebody, man, Wake Dog, you're screaming at us there. All right, too damn slow. You guys are just coming at us like crazy. It will depend on if they can make good on their plans to actually scale. Otherwise, it's over. I think there's a possibility that Charles will scale this. And if they can, here's the key with scaling. You've got to have the additional projects that are coming into the program. And again, it goes back to the developer queue. If you don't have a depth of developers, and I've talked to John Wu about this, who is the guy over the leads Avalanche, Avalabs, that's his biggest thing. And I would agree with him. If you look at the development cycle of blockchain, you are going to need to bring tech stack guys coming from Web 2 to Web 3. And to do that, you need to be able to make it an easy transition. Cardano Haskell is not an easy transition for most Web 2 guys because it's a whole new process of development architecture. And that's developers telling me this. So it's not that it's impossible, but it is a challenge. And I think that's one of the things that can kind of hold them back. All right, Ken Lucas, Zilliqa will outdo them all. Maybe. We'll see what Metapolis looks like. We did get the breakout on them. They had released all their stuff here this week, so that's a good one. Thanks for the super chat, Darren. And FTX needs to list Cardano. I will make sure I put some pressure on them to do that. They're a sponsor, so we love to try to hit up the guys over at FTX and say, hey, guys, we need some help over here. All right, you guys are listening in over on the podcast right now. Best thing to do is jump over here to the YouTube channel. This is where you're going to see the charts. This is where you're going to see our sentiment analysis, how that adjusts to price action. You'll also get a chance to see a lot of the reports that we do on a much more in-depth basis over on a thing called the Diamond Circle, which is where we give away digital assets. We give away a lot of insights, research, study, and additional token analysis, and it's free. So you guys can join. Just click the link below. Make sure and jump in quick because we're doing a big giveaway this week for our 300,000 subscriber. And the concept is we're going to be giving away, you know what, we might give away some Cardano again. We've done some ADA. We might do it again just on the fact that ADA's back in the pack. And I like that. So maybe that's the route we should take. If you guys want to reach me, you can do it on Twitter. It's @PaulBaron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.